busy morning the day after Game 7 of the World Series, and arguably the greatest Game 7 of a World Series that we have ever seen, and it's going to rank way up there. Jim Rosenhaus, the voice of the Cleveland Indians, joins us the day after, the morning after. And Jim, welcome to Big Board Sports in Albany. Roger Weiland, Zach By. Appreciate a few minutes. How you doing, Jim?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
We're good. And the question is, how are you after, calling a Game 7? The Cleveland Indians don't win. We do play-by-play for the University of Albany football and basketball, so we get the rigors of the play-by-play and everything. But I'm sure you must have been pumped for Game 7. It just didn't work out in favor of the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah, it's a sad day here, guys. I just was out running some errands, and there's a barber shop here where the three guys in there that, you see them during the summer, and they give you great advice to pass along to Terry Francona on his lineups and things like that. And poke my head in, and these guys looked like they all lost their dog, man. It was a tough deal. And it's funny because the way the game was going along, at 5-1 and even at 6-3, it just kind of looked like, well, this will be a Cubs coronation here, and they're going to roll on to the win, and there wouldn't be much drama. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's a ball game that turns into just a dramatic, thrilling, everything you look for in a decisive championship game. But I think that's what makes it hurt all the more for Cleveland fans. And it didn't seem like there were too many around the country because of the Cubs angle for it. But the folks here in Cleveland, it's been a long time for them too. So it was a tough one.
Yeah.
It really was.
It seemed like a lot, Jim. It seemed like a lot of Cub fans were in the house too.
Yeah, I think we learned that if there's a will, there's a way to get into a game, and there's various ways for Cubs fans to get their hands on tickets. Some of it at the expense of Indians ticket holders who could make a killing on resale, and they did, and the results are what you saw last night. It almost felt like a college bowl game. Where you like in the Rose Bowl, you have fans from Ohio State and fans from USC, and they kind of split the house, and that's almost what it felt like there last night, because my goodness, there were a lot of Cubs fans, and I hung around a long time after the game just to just see everything, and the amount of Cubs fans who were there. I mean, he's still at 2:00 in the morning. It was amazing.
We're talking with Jim Rosenhaus, who's the voice of the Cleveland Indians here on Big Board Sports. Jim, if you could rewind time, is there anything in last night's game that would have altered the outcome here from the Indian side?
Well, I think what you saw going in on paper, and deservedly so, the Cubs were the favorites. They were the best team in baseball this year, maybe from the first day of spring training. The Indians had a very good club, but they suffered a couple of key injuries to their starting pitching down the stretch. And with Carlos Carrasco and Danny Salazar not available, what that meant was if they got in a long series, they were going to have to push Corey Kluber. And they ended up pitching him a third time in the series. He was not as sharp as they would have liked to have seen him. And then a credit to him for going out there and trying it. But his second start on 3 days rest, I think it caught up with him. And I think the workload on Andrew Miller might have caught up to him, too, because for him to allow 2 home runs in the same appearance, we just hadn't seen that from him. And so I think you saw a team that might have been a little bit gassed from the pitching end of things. But, my goodness, they hung in there and had a chance to win it at the end.
I mean, when Davis hit the home run, even here in Albany, New York, it was like, oh, my heavens, are you kidding me? I mean, that must have been – when that pitch was thrown and the ball goes off that bat, man, what are you thinking, Jim? Did you realize it was gone immediately?
No, not at all, because there's the 19-foot high wall there in left field, and while it's not the Green Monster, it's still you have to get the ball up, and it was more of a line drive.
Right.
So you really had to wait to see if it would go, and it was high enough, and I had some family and friends down in the seats down that left field line, and they said it was absolutely bonkers down there when the ball left the ballpark and the Indians had tied it. And, it's one of those things you see it a lot in sports, and especially baseball. They got back and tied it, and it almost seemed like they needed to go ahead and take the lead right there. They somehow needed to get another run across, because once they didn't, the Cubs kind of were able to find their legs again. and that moment had passed, and that seemed like the ideal time, and they just couldn't put anything together after that.
Agreed there, because after the home run at 6-6, they did have a couple of chances, and the Cubs were able to get out of that inning. And then how big of a role do you think that little rain delay played in this whole thing last night? Because I know Jason Hayward said after the game that he actually had called a team meeting with the Cubs to say, hey, listen, let's go back out here and get this thing. I know we gave up the home run. I know Chapman's down on himself right now, but we've had too good of a year. Let's go out here and finish this thing off. How about the rain delay?
Yeah, it sounded like it was kind of a reset for the Cubs, and I haven't confirmed this, but I had read something that I guess when the Indians went back into the clubhouse, because they're the home team, they could have won in a walk-off. They had the plastic up and had prepared for the champagne celebration. And they go in there, and they're still playing baseball.
Wow.
And, and again, I haven't confirmed that, but I'd seen a couple of things after the game last night that indicated that. And just some stuff going on that, hey, that's not why they win or lose, but just some not odd things, but things that you think about, and did it take away any type of momentum? Who knows? So, you still got to go out and make pitches and all that kind of stuff. And then credit the Cubs. I mean, they came out and got the job done after the rain delay. So I know Terry Francona after the game said, hey, no impact. Brian Shaw was pitching well, and he's in the middle of that lineup, and they do damage.
Jim, is there any solace in the fact that Cleveland wasn't supposed to be here? The Indians weren't supposed to get past the Red Sox, and the Cubs were the heavy favorite. And the fact that they did bring it to 7 games, is there some solace from that, or is the wound too fresh to be able to find that silver lining?
Well, no, I think you can, because not only the Red Sox, but the Blue Jays were considered a favorite, even though they came in as a wild card, and the Indians had home field advantage in that series. I think a lot of folks thought the Blue Jays would win the pennant and go into the World Series, and clearly against the Cubs, they were an underdog. So, it's a hard thing to look at it that way right now. And the other thing people will point to is the Indians had a 3-1 lead, and they blew it, which I just don't buy that, because you could see the way the pitching was lined up. The Indians were going to have to stretch Tomlin and Kluber to get it done and bring them both back on short rest, where the Cubs went 4 deep in their rotation with very good starting pitching, what they've had all year, and they had them lined up perfectly the way they wanted. So you knew it was going to be a challenge. So I think the way the game went, it was up for grabs into extra innings, and the Cubs won it. Today it's tough for the Indians players for sure, and certainly their fans, but hopefully they can look back on it and say, hey, what a great run in the postseason, and a lot of optimism for the future as well.
We're talking with Jim Rosenhaus, voice of the Cleveland Indians, morning after Game 7 of the World Series. Where are you going to rank that game last night, Jim? You've been around the game a long time.
Best game I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I think, if a game like that happened in the regular season, you would say, boy, that was a great game. But because it's Game 7 of the World Series with everything on the line, and then the Cubs haven't won forever and the Indians almost forever, all that goes into it. And then to have a game like that, best game I've ever seen. And then it's hard to say that the way it ended, but just being there and feeling the ballpark shaking at various times, because it was nobody sat down half the game. I mean, I think you sat down in the inning breaks, and that was it. It was that kind of game. So, I don't know where people rank it. And I'm glad you guys, Albany, New York, no horse in the race, so to speak. I mean, what are people saying there about it?
I think they loved it. I think they would have it, as the best game. I think a lot of people have said this is the best game they've ever seen. I mean, certainly in a World Series, in a Game 7, you're right. Regular season, you say, oh, that was a great game. But when you flip it over to a World Series, to a Game 7, with all the storylines surrounding it, this one is hard to top. It really is.
Yeah, and like being close to it, and obviously Cubs fans would feel the same way, but you always wonder, because we're close to it, do we look at it through a different lens? But
I don't think so,
I would
Jim.
be interested to hear how do people who are maybe not casual, like good baseball fans who are just watching it because it's the World Series, what they thought. But that's neat to hear.
Hey, finally, Jim, I know the Cubs are young. They're like 7 guys in that roster, 24 and under, and they're all coming back, and the Cubs are going to be very, very good. They're going to be good again. I mean, there's no question. Theo Epstein has built a monster there. They're going to be outstanding again next year, probably one of the favorites. But Cleveland's going to be good too, right? When you look at the Cleveland roster moving forward, is this an Indians team that will have a fighting chance to get right back to where they were?
Absolutely. They still have that good young pitching. If they can get Carrasco and Salazar back healthy, which they should, then they have that rotation going again heading into next season. And they play this whole year primarily without their best position player and hitter in Michael Brantley, and he's scheduled to come back next season as well. So those are some real nice boosts right off the bat. The key will be, they have good young talent. Their core group of players is very strong. How do they complement that? Because the big keys this year, they had Mike Napoli and Rajai Davis, who was a hero last night. Yeah. They were both in on 1-year contracts. So can they go out again and get, you don't say impact veterans, but the veterans who can really complement your team and fill out what's a pretty good young roster? That'll be the big key, because they nailed it with both Napoli and Davis. Those were great signs last year, and they meant so much to this year's team.
Jim Rosenhaus, voice of the Cleveland Indians. We appreciate a few minutes here on Big Board Sports in Albany. Thanks for your time, Jim. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it, guys. Thanks for having me on.